Global Consciousness, the podcast. I'm Lisa Lajoie, your host, and I have one of my most favorite people in the world on the show today, Amy Schuber. Thank you for joining me, my love. I'm so excited to talk with everybody about your purpose-driven mission, the transformations that have happened, and to share with the world how amazing you are, because I adore you and love everything that you do. So let's talk a little bit about you and how's it going? First of all, how are you, my love? How's your
Oh
day
my
going?
gosh. Thank you for having me first and foremost. Thank you for letting me be with you and share this time with you. Everything's going well. All good. Nothing crazy to report in today.
Awesome. So part of the reason, apart from just loving you and adoring you, and we've done some amazing things together. And really, honestly, you're one of the people in my life that I trust to help me make transformations, which is, I don't say that lightly. I hardly trust anybody to work with me or my energy or my heart. And you're one of the people who I really do have a deep sense of trust and safety with. And I want to talk about how this happened to you. Okay. So I know I want to tell the story, you guys, you got to hear it. So we started out connecting because we were both business intuitives, and you had me on your show, and you guys, you got to check her show out. It's called Inspired Conversations.
Yep.
Podcast with Amy. She's amazing. And so we connected we met at a podcasting event, and then we connected in the sphere of doing similar work and just like showcasing and talking about how we work with business owners and entrepreneurs. And you've had just this unbelievably magnificent transformation, which I absolutely hope you share the depth of what that means, so people can understand what it's like to really find your purpose and to really sink into, I'm going from my to-dos into my being and living my beingness versus what I can do or can't do, or what I might be able to do well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about where you were when I met you. I think this is a great way to talk about it, and talk about the amazing transformations that have happened to land you where you are now. So,
Okay.
yeah, I know this is what I do. And then we go.
I know.
Yeah.
It's so loaded, right? So
Yes.
I want to be transparent. When we met at that podcast event where we were, podcasting and talking about podcasting and everything,
Yeah.
I was in such a great space. But when you and I actually met, I was having a bit of a meltdown,
I remember,
and
yeah.
we definitely connected on so many levels because of the similarities. And I was so drawn to you for the work that you do,
Mhm.
and us
Yeah.
having those similarities of like, oh, you're like me, I'm like you. And then there was that moment when we really got to know each other where I was just having some, it was interesting, a lot of energy coming at me, and I was in a weird space. And that was part of the middle of me in my transformation, and
Yeah.
recognizing, what is this? Why do I feel taken down by other people's energies? And oh my gosh, I'm
Mhm.
on stage at this big event, and yet I feel like a hot mess behind the scenes, right?
Yep.
And you were so amazing and helpful in that moment in the hotel room where you're like, girl, but it's that like vulnerability of allowing someone in to support
Yeah.
you when you're not aware of what's happening. You're aware of what's happening, but you're not aware of what's happening, but you definitely need support. So, and leading into us getting to know each other, having you on my podcast and going deeper in your work and understanding that work, you've been such a amazing guide and teacher for me. I just want people to know how amazing you are with
Wow.
what you've done. And you've been an intricate part of my transformation story the past couple of years, since the day we met. It was like
Yeah, that's so
on
beautiful.
board with my new friend, Lisa, whether you knew it or not. But I think part of the transformation journey is that being vulnerable, allowing yourself to be where you are, and being safe with certain people, not everybody, but
Yeah.
certain people that come in that can help guide you. And honestly, I can see us talking in the back of that room that day, and we just connected on something else that was not during the meltdown, but and it was like, oh, you're my people. And I just knew it, right? And I was like,
Mm.
ooh, how can I be more connected with her?
Yeah.
Knowing I could have you on my show, and then going deeper as we did, it just naturally happened. But I think that's a part of it, allowing people in for you
Mhm.
when you're in your
Mhm.
transformation state, when you're in your journey. And sometimes that's hard because we could be a hot mess. Like, I call it a hot mess just because it's like I'm emotional and I'm working things out or feeling strange about things and uncomfortable, probably.
Yeah.
My uncomfortableness is, I call it a hot mess because I tend to be emotional and kind of all over the place. That's how I
Mhm.
describe it.
Mhm.
And that's not a time when you would invite people in,
You're right. Well, we had
So
to have this kind of like energy understanding, which is, I think, how we really connected was through energy understanding. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And when two souls know each other and meet each other, and we've had this beautiful opportunity to realize we've known each other before too, because we've done tons of healing work and just diving into that, the soul journey, So,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because I remember because I think it was Debbie. So it was like, and I was like, what's happening? And then I looked at you and I was like, oh my God, you need energy help. Boom. And we just got into this work because as a powerful empath being in this world and being a powerful healer, maybe not knowing it at the time and not realizing how all this energy is just communicating, talking, pulling, moving, shifting,
Yeah.
and not being aware of it, because that's what the hot mess was. It wasn't anything wrong. It was too much information overload, energy overload, and just not knowing how to be grounded in yourself so that wasn't influencing you. But I
Yeah.
also realized that was like a beginning of a beautiful transformation for you from my witnessing, because I was there and I've seen what you've gone through to lead you where you are in this new purposeful life that you have.
Yeah.
And I understand how difficult that can be. You know what I mean? And a lot of what I like talking about on the show is those moments in time where you just realize, like, I'm different than what I'm living right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is like something's not lining up anymore, or something doesn't feel whole in what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's hard because entrepreneurs, we're driven, we can do tons of stuff. I know you have tons of skills, not necessarily purpose, right? Not necessarily what you are and how you can take your gifts and put them into a place where you can utilize them and people can benefit from them. You know what I mean? So what happened? What happened? Like, to bring you, and we haven't even told anybody what you're up to now, but we will. Right now, we're just going through the journey of being that business coach, that business intuitive strategist person, and then working with people and realizing, and a podcaster, you're absolutely successful podcaster, which is also there, and then realizing, like, this is not me.
Yeah, it goes way back to I worked in corporate America. I lived in San Francisco and I was just doing the deal, right? Like this goes
Right.
back to like 2004 was when I left corporate. I was miserable. I was unhappy and I had that moment, that aha. I'm like, I
Mhm.
can't do this anymore. I don't love being in a cubicle state in this corporation. I worked for some really well-known companies that were people wanted those jobs, but I had just like got burned out and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I
Mhm.
didn't know what that meant on the other side. Like if I quit
Right.
this job, I don't know what the job is that I want on the other side of it. I knew it was more creative. I knew it was, but I had no idea. But I finally took that leap and quit the job and moved. I left San Francisco and came back to Southern California where my family was, just because I needed a fresh start. I needed a change. And I just took that leap on with myself. But then like there's all that time in between from then to now. But that's where it started. That's when I like
Mhm.
bet on myself. I didn't know what was on
Mm.
the other side of it, but I trusted something enough that just quit and it'll come to you. It'll figure itself out. And it did, but it's taken a long time. It's not a straight line, right? We sometimes think we're going to make one decision, it's going to create open for everything, possibly, but for me it wasn't a straight line, and it was like being fed to me in spoonfuls. And
Mhm.
so things would come up. So what did I do? I came back to Southern California and I started exploring. I started taking classes. I started changing. Like, if I want to do something more creative, what does it look like? Well, you know what I did? I got a job doing the same thing at another company because people were
Yeah.
pressuring me after like 6 months. They were like, you need to get a job, because that's like a story in my family, get a job.
That's right.
So, and I come from entrepreneurs. So it's kind of a funny mantra for them to have for
Mhm.
us, get a job when they're entrepreneurs, but that's okay. I've sorted that out. But so I was getting the pressure of get a job. Even a life coach that I had at the time said, you better get a job. And I was like, oh, so I fired her, but I did get a job because I took the pressure.
Mhm.
But into that job, 8 months later, I was laid off because I happened to get a job for Lehman Brothers. And that was the year that they all crashed. The big
Okay.
financials crashed. So I was chewed up and spit out. So I felt like the universe was like, haha, that's cute, but no, you're not doing that. And so
Mhm.
then I took the time to explore, and that sort of opened up these doors of me walking into, taking my marketing experience and becoming a business coach for women entrepreneurs. And when
Mhm.
I got into that space, I was like, oh, this is my people. These are my people. This is what
Yeah.
I'm good at. This looks different than what it looks like in a corporation. And I became an entrepreneur as an entrepreneur holding space for entrepreneurs. And that's where my business consulting strategy, my intuition was firing in those workshops that I did for like 5 years with women every month. It was amazing. So that led me to where I am now, because that opened my curiosity.
Yeah.
Because in that group and in that work, I was also pulling in leaders to interview for the group, live
Mm.
events and stuff like that. And so, it just was this evolution of self. And in that time, I was also seeking healers. I'm always been interested in spirituality and healing. So if someone told me they met someone who's a great healer, I'd be like, oh, I gotta go. Like, help me, fix me, do something with me. I keep hitting this roadblock, so help me. So I
Yeah.
was always in those conversations and hiring people, never realizing I was one of them. But I feel like I was in training on a side of it that I wasn't aware that I was in training, And
Mhm.
then cut to when we met, I was in the podcasting world. I
Mhm.
was very aware of all the healing and everything that was going on with me because I was initiating it and exploring it. However, I was learning how to navigate it myself. And I think what happened at that point was I started recognizing I needed more filters. The people I
Mhm.
thought who were my people at that time were actually some of the people draining my energy.
Yep.
On the surface, they look like amazing. They're amazing people and colleagues and friends. For
Mhm.
internally, for me, it was like I was their power cord. And I thought they were going to be supportive of me, but they were draining of me. And in that moment that you and I met, I think you were the one that were like, girl, you're a hot mess. And I'm like, I know, help. And then you helped me realize that I was surrounded by people that weren't supportive of me, unbeknownst to any of us. They didn't know that, but I was starting to become aware of my presence and energy and where it was scattered and what wasn't working anymore. And that was you gave me like a filter to help me
Mhm.
on the journey. And I think along the way, when we decide we want to live in our purpose, so that when I left corporate, I decided I wanted to live in my purpose. It took
Yeah.
me a really long time to be in this moment, in the embodiment of my purpose. And I didn't realize it was going to take so long, but it did, and I think it does, as we are shifting and changing for
Yeah.
ourselves. I think we have to give ourselves that break, whether it takes a year, a month, 10
Mhm.
years, it doesn't matter. You're on track and you have to go through what you have
That's
to
right.
go through to land in it.
That's
So
right.
for the disconnect, for me, there was a time where I was really loving doing the business strategy. I'm really good at that. Like, I'm really good at that. A lot of it is my intuition coming in as well, but I didn't realize that at the time. I thought it was my training. But I felt off. I still felt off. I'm like, how is it that I'm doing this work? I still feel like I'm hitting a wall. It's not expanding as much as I'd like it to. And I feel off. It doesn't feel complete for me. Something's missing. There was always something missing until I landed in this work of learning the energy work and learning and starting to express it. And then that's when everything clicked for me. And I was like, oh, everything I've been talking about and training with these people about their missions, their goals, their intentions,
Mhm.
their embodiment, I was in the theories of it for myself, but
Right.
I wasn't embodying it myself.
Yeah,
And
that's
then,
really important.
yeah. And so as soon as I started learning this healing work that I've landed in, for me, the embodiment was like, whew, there it is. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, that's what everybody's talking about. That's what I've been talking about. I just haven't been experiencing it. So there was still like a gap for me. There was still a disconnect for me, even in following all my things, right? Doing a podcast that's about my ideas and my purpose and my creativity, not about business. Even that was still a little off for me. The podcast was amazing. The conversations were also amazing, but
Yeah,
they were also a training ground because I've been doing it for 6 years now. When
that's
I
right.
look back on those 6 years, I'm like, wow, it was also a training ground. Being in the conversations, being in the understanding and knowing of other people like you, bringing it forth to me so I can understand it. And then I was led to it through that as well. So it was all purposeful, but it wasn't until I landed in this embodiment that I was like, oh, there's the key. I've been trying to open the door with all the wrong keys until I found the right key, which
Yeah.
is where I'm at now,
Yeah. And I love it. Like, I want to circle back because I think it's important for people. Like, I want you guys to realize this. Okay. So if you're listening, you're an entrepreneur, you don't feel purposeful, you're good at all kinds of stuff. What I love that you just shared was I have these gifts. I didn't even realize that they wanted to go somewhere. I
Yeah.
had this ability to use my intuition to help people in their business or in their, and I mean, you still can do any of that work. You're amazing. You know what I mean? It's just was learning about what your full embodiment is, what your full being wants to do, what you can contribute to people's lives, because you do it through conversations. You
Yeah.
do it through a new modality, a healing modality that you've like landed. You feel like you've landed, and you can deliver these goods of your capacity to help people heal in. And at the same time, you're super great with strategy, and super great with all that business experience comes with you, and also the community aspect. And when I
Yeah.
look at it all, I see, wow, this is two things. One, a person who never has given up on
Mm.
exploring their truth and themselves. So that says a lot, because you're saying, this is what happened for me. I kept following that drive. I kept following what's next. I kept listening to the universe, even though I didn't feel like I was in it or in my being. But you relentlessly just don't give up, no matter how painful it's been or frustrating. And what do I do with this capacity that I have to see things and know things? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so one thing I'm taking away is all those things that I did were training grounds for me, and you're still figuring out how to implement them all. I'm sure, like that's like a landing strip. You know what happens? You're like, oh, now I could, I could do this, I could do that. But at the same time, you followed the dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
You recognize that the dissatisfaction is a message. It was a messenger for you. You listen to your energy, even though you might not, to whatever 10 years ago, known that's what you were doing. But you listen to that discomfort. You had the courage to say, I'm not staying where I don't feel right, which is critical for entrepreneurs who are trying to find their entrepreneurship. Like, people
Yeah.
who are heart driven, it's really hard when you can't take the time to listen to the discomfort. And I
Yeah.
think that is such, for me, it's a huge takeaway and something that impresses me, because I believe, like, I mean, I know you, I'm blessed to have you in my space. So I know a lot of the details, but what it takes, that raw courage to show up for your soul and yourself, that's the journey that's difficult, which I think is a huge part of what you're doing now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've had real takeaways, and we'll talk about that a bit, but I've had real takeaways from our work together, where you've helped me, and things changed extraordinarily so because of the healing work you did with me. And my things opened up, whether it's in my business or my personal life, or things just have shown up differently, releasing beliefs through this healing work that you're doing, identifying where the issues are coming from. So I see it like all of you has created or has landed in this place where we can have healing conversations about business, because you
Hmm.
understand the language. Like, that's what I brought to you. I didn't bring you, oh, my daddy hurt me. I didn't bring
Yeah.
that to you. I'm like, listen, this is an obstruction of my business. Amy, let's walk through it and talk about it. And you're like, okay, let's go. And you took your methodology. We started the journey. And then, like, things extremely opened up. And I'll talk about an example because it's important for people to understand. I want you to get that. I brought to you, it was a while back now, but it brought to you, like, I can't receive the help I need. Like, it's
Hmm.
just not happening. Like, there's something in my energy system or in my mindset that's not working. Like, I can't just, it's not naturally happening. Cool people, but I'm overgiving them. It doesn't work out. They're not there. There's a broken mechanism inside me. You remember?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
And so we did this work together, but we did the work because I could have that conversation with you, because all your business um, work is there. All the things that you know about business and what could and could not be in the way helped you navigate what I needed in my healing. And then you
Yeah.
did the protocol, and then we could talk about it. So for me, it's like, when we did that work, I was like, okay, wait a minute. Like, and then the results after, how things have opened up, and I found a productivity person, and I found this, and people all of a sudden came to me. Like, it was like I was obstructed in my energy. I
Yeah.
was obstructed in my mind. And then, I mean, it was like a miracle process for me, because I could talk to you, and we were like, you could understand me too. I felt seen, heard, understood. And then we went through this protocol and did some healing work with the universe, with source, and with you and with me. And then
Hmm.
I was like, whoa. We anchored in some new stuff that really needed to show up for me. And then I was like, oh my God, like, what just happened? Remember, I was texting you a few days later, like, what has just happened? Like, you got to hear what happened to me. This is phenomenal. So for people in like who are like me or you, business people who are heart-centered, spiritual people, this is like a must.
Yeah.
Because working with you is not just working with a healer, you're actually able to help entrepreneurs heal the shit in the way, reconstruct the energies on all the layers of a person inside of who they are with the
Mm.
clarity, with seeing it clearly, first of all, because you talk to me first, you're like, okay, oh, it looks like this. You used your guidance to help me identify, like, this is what it looks like. And then we made sure that we validated that. And then we're like, okay, let's go through the healing process, find out where this is located in your system.
Hmm.
What's going on? Like, it was mind blowing. So I wanted to tell you guys about that because it was shocked me a bit. It really did. And I was so pleasantly surprised because I was like, I'm an energy person.
Yeah.
So when you work in my energy, I'm going to have really big changes.
Yeah.
But if I can't talk to the person who's doing energy work with me, and it's happened, I've had conversations with healers who are talking to me about nonsense. Oh, and they're flying into some, I don't fucking care what paradigm. I don't care where you are. Like, where are you? You're not even with me anymore. You're not,
Right.
I'm the map. I'm the map, not like I don't know where you are. Where would you go to get this? Like, it was such a grounded, really powerful, eye to eye, heart to heart, energy to energy experience that it was different than what I was used to or have seen before in that world. So I want us to talk about that. And do you agree with me that that expertise is also really part of how you were able to help me?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the beginning, I thought I had to be one thing or another, or change it. And I couldn't be all the things. Looking back, I recognize when I was helping all those entrepreneur women like 10 years ago or even
Right.
more, that was my intuition coming in. Like,
100%.
I would know all these things about stuff and I would give it to them and then they'd run with it and it would change the course of their business. And
Right.
I have a lot of resources. I mean, I'm pragmatic, I'm strategic, and I'm intuitive. And I didn't realize it was the blend, the integration of all those things that was happening. I look back now and recognize it. I'm like, oh, I mean, I could walk into a business like a brick and mortar store and I can look around and know exactly what needs to change in
Yeah.
order for them to like create a higher revenue for them.
Yeah.
Just because I can, from it's a combination of experience and my intuition working. But when I was in my journey changing and transforming, in my mind, I felt like I had to be one or the other, or one or the other, or oh, I have to choose that. And I didn't realize I was picking up pieces of myself along the way.
Right
So
on.
so people listening, if you're in the midst of a transformation, or you're in the willingness and wanting to change because you're like, I really want to be on purpose, but I feel lost and confused. Look
Mm.
around, like you just said, your life is your roadmap. Look around and pick up what feels good to you, what's worked for you. And it doesn't have to be exactly that, but it can come with you until it's ready to show you how it's going to be in the next
Mm.
phase of you. Because
Mm.
now I feel like I finally landed in this integration and embodiment of all of me. And it's just been puzzle pieces along the way. I didn't realize it. I kind of blew the puzzle out of the water and was like, it has to be something completely different and brand new in my head, because my head is very strong, Lisa will tell you, and it really wants to figure things out, and it really is stubborn, and it doesn't want to let go of things, and it has to look a certain way. So I've had to like work through all that too. But along the way, I've been picking up these pieces of myself. And if I could say one thing, it's like, pick those pieces up, nurture them, bring them along, even if you just tuck them into your heart to show up later, but bring them with you. Don't discard them. Don't leave them behind, because that is when we become fully on purpose. It's we're allowing all those things to be with us,
Love.
at all the places. It might not look like the one work, but it is there to support you on some level.
Mhm.
And you have to embrace all the things. And it wasn't always easy for me to let go of some of those things either. It was ugly. Let me just say, this transformation process is highs and lows, and some of the lows can be really low. And we don't always talk about that in entrepreneurship, in your personal journey. It can be tough. It can be hard. And then something else slams you in your life and you weren't expecting that. And it's like, oh, all the emotions have to come up, all the feelings about what you thought you were, who you aren't, what
Mm.
all those things need to release, because that's kind of part of the puzzle too. Sometimes those pieces are holding out the real pieces that want to be there, those emotional blocks. And that's in the work we do too, releasing those emotional blocks that are holding space for something, holding space, and it's holding the embodiment of you away, if
That's
that
right.
makes sense.
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, because that's been my experience in doing some of the work with you. And I definitely want to talk more about what that means and all that, for people who might be listening. And what I love, like, it's interesting because we're talking and I'm getting like shivers and I'm like, my gosh, this is amazing. And then I realize I'm like, really, like, you're a healer, but you're a healer for a certain type of person too, like myself. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Where, I'm a business person and I'm not going to come to you and talk to you about trauma, even if that's what we might be healing. I'm going to come and talk to you about my business and where it's blocked and what I don't like and what I'm not able to handle. And you're like, because I know you're just like, you can't, whatever, what do you want to do? Let's go.
Yeah.
It's not like there's a restriction and you're only doing a certain type of thing and you're only working on a certain type of emotion. The
Yeah.
work you're doing can really focus on healing any particular area and finding out what it is that is holding you back in your energy system, in yourself, in your history, and who you are. And you're able to, and what I love too about working with you is you have and I loved it because I mean, I'm lucky I get to just hang whenever, but the idea of you just sitting there and going, yeah, anything goes, I got you.
Mhm.
Because that's who you are. Like that is who you are. It's like you will give everything you can to help a person heal. And I know you were like that before. You've always been like that. But now
Yeah.
how you honor yourself and you put it into a system so people can get benefit from it. And you also feel like you're contributing your purpose and helping others in a very designed and special way that changes them, helps them change themselves, supports them in the transformation. And you get into areas where most people don't really understand. They don't understand their meridian bodies. They don't understand their light body. They don't understand their mindset. Because, I mean, you guys, you just have to get a session with her because it's really freaky and amazing what she does. Like, it's amazing. I have my own style. You have this style, which I love. It's very strategic, it's very systematic, but it's also, without you, it would be totally different experience for me.
Right.
Like, you have made it very, very unique for me and in my experience. And I've been doing this for a long, long time,
Yeah.
and I have no time to waste. And I hate like talking for 17 hours. I hate it. I'm not like that. I'm like, let's get in, let's get, I know this stuff. You're like, I got you. Let's go. In like an hour, we're like, zit, zit. Okay, next, let's go. Like, it's like amazing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I love it because I can talk to you easily about these things that entrepreneurs go through. And really, what's obstructing us can be on any freaking level. When you're
Yeah.
an energy person, it could be any level. So you finding somebody who you can actually talk to about all that. Whoa. This
Yeah.
is what excites me for you. You know what I mean? This is what I find really exciting, that conversion of everything right now. And then being able to say, I got myself, I'm being myself, and I can help in this extraordinary way now because I get it. I
Yeah.
get how powerful I am in myself because I've learned about my capacity. I'm not afraid of it or trying to figure it out. I figured it out. Yeah, I'm a powerful healer. My energy, I have this ability. My soul is to help people. Oh, I was always helping people. Oh, and I'm practical too. And I could actually deliver this strategy. We can understand things. I'm like, oh my God, I still have shivers. So good. No, it's so good. So let's talk about the work so people can get a feel for it. Okay, I really love sharing how people convert themselves through consciousness and transformation. And we've talked a lot about that, how amazing it is, and some of the stuff that you went through and how you just move forward, and so important. But let's
Mhm.
talk about the actual work that you're
Yeah.
up to now, and what that means to you, and how good it feels to feel like you're on purpose, and like how you've integrated all these changes.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like, I want to say we can only do so much for ourselves, right? Like, we can do so much for ourselves. And then we can only do so much for ourselves when you need a guide. Like that moment I saw you that evening, honestly, like in the hallway of a hotel when I was like, oh, I'm crazy town, a meltdown. And you're like, girl, in that moment, if I don't know what I would have been like if I didn't have the support of that energy releasing and that clarity that you gave me in that moment, because I would have just showered and gone to bed and probably woke up in that same drained space, right? So there's a moment where we need to ask for help. And there's so much power that we have for ourselves, but there's also a moment where we need some support as well, because we also can't see what we can't see.
That's
And
right.
that's why all along I've always gotten help. I've always asked for help and said, I
Mm.
don't see what's going on here, and it's crazy making. I'm losing my mind. I'm doing everything I can, and I can't seem to get past this one thing, because my mind will figure it out, because it'll make me crazy trying to figure it out. And that's not
Mm.
always what's necessary.
Right.
So, the work that this is, this modality, it's clearing the energy blocks, inherited blocks that we've received from our ancestors, from our parents, from our grandparents, from so far back. I mean, it's really trauma work. These emotions and trauma that's gotten trapped. It happens for us in our own lifetime, but it also happens in our families' lifetimes. And if it gets trapped for them, they pass it on to us. For me, that was like, what? I am running the same pattern and story, and it's not even mine. What? And sometimes you can see it in your family,
Yes,
like, yeah,
that's
my dad does that, or my dad's always had that experience, or my cousin, or whatever. Sometimes you see it and sometimes you don't, because it
mhm,
might just be
mhm.
exasperated in your life and world.
Yep.
But it's this, like, to me, it's like this golden key to, like, yeah, let's clear that, because if it's not mine, I don't need to carry it anymore, and let's heal
Mhm.
that. And what's interesting is learning this in the past couple of years, and then having it come to fruition and embodiment for me at this perfect time in the world. I mean, we are living through so much trauma, right? Especially, I'm in America, I'm in the United States, and we are clearing the trauma, and it is not pretty. And in order to clear it, we have to, like, identify it and then clear it out.
Yeah.
Can it be easy? Yeah. Does it have to be a trauma experience? No, it doesn't have to, because we're experiencing it the way we're experiencing it individually, right?
Mm.
So it's like such a time as this that this work is really needed on the planet for us to get out of our ways, because it's important for us to really be in our essence and our truth. And all along, it's so interesting. When I first came back to Southern California, I went to a women's conference, and Maria Shriver was holding it, because at the time her husband was the governor, et cetera. But one of the things on the program, there was this Hopi poem, and the very last line of it said, "We are the ones we've been waiting for." And it
Oh,
just hit me like a
ah,
bullet. Like, I
so
got chills, and I was like, oh, I'm the one I've been waiting for. I've been seeking information from everybody else to teach me, to train me, to show me what to do. Who am I? What am I doing? Teach me, tell me, I'll do anything. But in
mhm.
that moment, I sat there and I was like, whoa, we are the ones. You are the one. I am the one. I'm waiting for myself to show up. So
Yeah.
I got to find her, and it's funny, because, that's one of those hits that I constantly get in
Mhm.
the craziest way. That line will show up for me. You are the one you've been waiting for. I've had people say it to me on my podcast, like, well, you're the one. And I'm like, I know, but it's like, I don't, like, promote that. That's not like my tagline or anything on
Right.
my podcast, but it's like, we are the ones we've been waiting for. And if I can help you get back to your truth and essence, then I've done my work, because I finally found myself in it. We've got to all find ourselves. It's not about the narrative outside of us. It's about the internal narrative. And we've been so conditioned to do what society wants us to do, what our family wants us to do, what our partners want us to do. And we don't hear that in our voice anymore. So it's like, we've really got to strip it away to get
Mm.
back to ourselves. And to me, this work does that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought it was doing that in helping business and women entrepreneurs find their voice in their business and have women support themselves, because there's this big swath of women that don't believe in themselves. Like, who am I to own my own business and have my own revenue and be self-sufficient? Like, that's a story. And then beyond that, it's, who are you to do whatever it is you want to do? It doesn't have to be business, but just being strong enough to have a voice and stand up for what it is that you want, whatever that is. I don't care. It doesn't have to be business. It can be art. It can be home, family, all of the things. Anything is
Yeah.
possible with that. And I think by doing this work and diving into it, it helps people guide them back to themselves. And it can be so fast and easy and
Oh,
quick.
yeah.
It doesn't have to be a 10-year process. If you're willing, you'll go there. If you're up against blocks, we can just get in there, because you might not know what it is. You might think, what I thought it was definitely not what it was.
Mm.
And it's really dropping in and trusting yourself enough to allow the healing, whether it's from me or anybody. From what I would share with people is, follow your instincts, follow who you're guided to. Like, I was guided to Lisa, and
Mm.
then, wow, I didn't know all these years later we'd be sitting in this conversation,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
you've also been an intricate part of this unfoldment for me as I've gone through some hard times. Losing my mom the last couple years was the
Yeah.
worst, and you were, an intricate friend to me and healer in that space to guide me through some really hard emotions.
Yeah.
And I think if anyone's drawn to somebody to support them in that way, follow that instinct, even if you think it's crazy or weird, or you don't know them and you just saw them, you
Mhm.
know, in a room or on a Zoom. Now it's a little different because we're not all one-on-one,
Mm.
but if you have that connection with someone, reach out, because there's a reason for it. There's a reason they're showing up in your world to support you somehow, some way. Um, and that's how my transformation has unfolded, because I've
Mm.
allowed myself to ask for help and get the guidance. I've been resistant too, don't get me wrong. I I've not listened to my own instincts. I've been resistant. I like to say, like, I stand on the brake and I have the handbrake on and I'm standing on the brakes because I'm that resistant. But you know, that's, I know myself. So, you know, I encourage you to be less resistant if I'm speaking your language in the resistance, because there's beauty on the other side of it. And our resistance is just trying to keep us safe. And there's beauty on the other side of what we're really trying to find.
Mhm. 'Cause- And it's interesting to like to anchor in a little bit more about the conversation. So also I've been in the industry of learning about energy and soul mapping and all this stuff for years.
Yeah.
And what I love about what you're doing, the cool thing, like I'll give the back to the example around my healing around receiving. That was about my father. And I knew, like, we were talking about it. We went through the process and you were like, yeah, it has to do with your dad. And I was like, fuck yeah, it has to do with my dad. Because instantly realized my dad was like, and it was like I saw his life in front of my face. My father's also passed away, but it was like, wow. And was that even about me? Right? Because our genetics, our system, what we learned as children all lands in it. And the healing work that you're doing is hitting all those tiers. It's hitting all those levels of self.
Yeah.
And that's what I found really amazing, because it's not just like about my dad, it's about what happened to me in my system. It's
Yeah.
how that's playing a part in my body, in my energy, in my memory, um, and how that energy is still living somewhere in the background because it's never been healed. And
Yeah.
I became the conduit and the person, and together we were able to bring healing to me, which brought healing to that problem,
Yeah.
which to
Yeah.
me is so incredibly beautiful. Like it's for full circle work. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
So this is what, to me, what I love so much about it and about what you're doing. I know there's like, I'm always teasing you about it. So there's the individual, but then you also have this amazing capacity, and she'll be back on the show. Don't even worry about it, about helping people globally heal. You know what I mean? And how
Yeah.
that works, and how we can actually, you can generate an opportunity with people who are willing to release some of our social conditioning and genetic conditioning in our socialization,
Yeah.
you know? Can we talk a little bit about that? How those truths for people come together in the collective? you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, I want to say too about the healing work. It doesn't always have to be heavy, and you don't always recognize where it's coming from. You
Right.
could be coming to me and saying, I have this business, I want to take it to the next level, and I keep finding myself taking wrong opportunities.
Yeah.
And I can't seem to break free of the $1 million mark or whatever, $100,000. And it's like, okay, it's a money thing. Let's talk about that. And we
That's right.
get into it. And then we recognize, oh, there's a money block that comes from this emotion that comes from 9 generations back. I'll say 9 generations back because when I have the work with me, 9 generations back on my father's side, I really wish I could go there to find out what happened, because there's a big trauma because it keeps coming up, right?
Oh, I'll do that with you. Come on, I'll do time travel with you.
Okay. Yes, totally. But so like you don't even need to know. That's what's brilliant about it. You're sort of like, okay, I'm just going to be the passenger here and I'm going to receive it because I just want to release this thing that keeps distracting me from having what I desire in this moment, in this now moment, in 2021 in my life. And we go there and we release it and it's boom, easy. Right. It's not like we have to fall in a pile on the floor crying, which,
Yep.
sometimes that's necessary, but it's not necessary. And it's like, whoa. And all of a sudden it just relates. You're like, wow, I wonder what happened. There's that wondering. I always go there like, I wonder what happened. And then it's like, but you don't need to know. That's the cool thing. You don't need to know. And it releases that from you and your siblings and your children
That's right.
and anybody in your lineage before you. So if it happened 9 generations ago, between me and 9 generations, it's helping everybody in between.
Mm.
And I feel like something that's opened up for me is I can see the ancestors' freedom. So yes, they're gone, but I
Oh
see
yeah.
people set free because their energy is still trapped in this emotion that you are carrying around. And it could be no big deal or it could be a big deal. You know,
Yeah.
it could be something that once you release this, you are set free to have all the success in your life, because what happened to them might have been they weren't safe having success. So it scared them, and it scared them for their whole generations to come. They
Right.
wanted to keep everybody safe. That's the thing about it. It's not ill will, it's not ill intention. The reason this stuff gets trapped is because they want to keep everybody safe in the future.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
like I don't want that to happen to my people. So unconsciously we're trapping that, and it's not going to happen to them. But now we live in different times, and now we're in this age and space and time of shifting consciousness, opening ourselves up, coming back to our truth, our open hearts, our loving selves, and our true essence of who we are. And I
Mhm.
believe we are all here to make a difference on the planet, whatever the work is that we're meant to do. And
Yes.
if I can help in some way to get you back to that work, to be prosperous and to be abundant and to feel happy and feel loving and create that experience that you can just have all the things and feel good about it,
Mhm.
then I've achieved something. You
Yeah.
know, that's the point, because we don't have to be in our own way any longer. We really don't. And I know the world looks crazy mad right now, but if we can ground ourselves in who we are and what we're up to and not ignore all that stuff that's happening and not get caught up in it and come back to ourselves and our truth and what we're up to and our path, even if it feels small compared to like what maybe needs to happen in the world, you doing that and coming to your own path will shift everything for everybody in your life, in your business, in your career, in your relationships, because you are as great as all the things outside of you that you think are greater than you. It's all us. And I think that embodiment for me has been really powerful to recognize, like, I don't need all those other healers. Sometimes I do, but it's like, I don't need to keep going outside myself. I can do the work to get here and then put this out in the world. That's what I've learned. Like when I
Mhm.
finally allow myself to be like present with my purpose, put it out in the world the way I'm doing now, everything aligns in a new way, you know. And for me, it feels like with ease, more ease and grace. I love to say with ease and grace because we're really meant not to be in the struggle. We're really meant to just let it be easy, follow the truth, follow your path, follow your intuition. But we've been conditioned out of it. So we
That's,
question ourselves when we shouldn't question. We should question everybody else, not ourselves.
that's
Like,
right.
you might not get me, but I get me, and that's all that matters. So you can come with me or not. I don't care. And
Yeah.
that's where we need to be right now, and that's where we need to come back to. And it's okay if we don't get it. I know I am cuckoo to a lot of people in my world, and it's okay. I'm okay with it. I wasn't for a very long time. I mean, most of my life I was trying to fit in and be a chameleon and be like everybody else so I could be liked and loved and not different. But
Yeah.
let's be honest, I've been different this whole time. I just didn't embrace it. And because I didn't embrace it, nobody else could have embraced it. And
Mhm.
now I'm embracing it. So now the people who want to embrace it will, the people who don't will peel out, and I'm the better for it. I don't need those people in my life, you
Oh, no.
know?
It's so important for us to not be conditioned. I mean, we really
Yeah.
have a fluid awareness of what we're here to do. And like, and we've talked about this tons of times. The way our socialization has happened, we've just ripped away the opportunity to just be who you are. If it's not in this container, if it's not in business, or if you're not like some talented musician, or you're not, it's like all of a sudden we created classifications
Yeah.
instead of just letting people open the door and for that to have value in itself. You know what I mean? So it's so important the work you're doing. I mean, I'm obviously so freaking proud of you and I love it. And I've done the work. So I'm like honestly happy to share about, the conversations that we can have and the place that you can bring people. And I know like what's important is for people to comprehend what that's like. And so I'm trying to share with you what that was like for me. And the thing that you didn't say, which I really want people to understand is when you're doing this work, you're also really tuning into those people.
Yeah.
You're like, I could see the ancestors, but I want to tell you, because I've had the experience with Amy, is she's actually talking to them, watching them, experiencing through my desire to heal, the opportunity for all of them to be seen, heard, understood, and to have a release of all the memories of that consciousness and all the landing marks of the traumas that my ancestors and other people have experienced. And it's deep diving work. You make it easy, you make it comforting. And when you're like listen, you're doing a lot of the talking as you move through the healing work. And in any time you've done that, like I never interrupt. I'm just like, yep, yep. I know what you're experiencing. I can see that you're actually tuned in with the fibers and the energy of what happened.
Yeah.
And that whenever we witness something that way, it actually can dissolve itself, because often the memories and the history we have has never been witnessed with love. And that's the other thing I love about you and doing this stuff with you and all of you. If you're interested in something like this, it's so important for you to understand you need to be held by somebody who can see you and sense you and understand, who's not afraid of any type of conversation, and who's able to actually hold a space of seeing you with this state of love, which actually is the dissolver. Like you have a method, but it's that love frequency that you bring to helping people feel seen on all the levels, right? So it's not just the one level, like person to person. You're seeing all the levels. I watch you. You don't even know. I don't even know if you know you're doing it. Like you just go into that space, boom, and then you're like, you're just having a party with my family or whoever else is going on. We're like, we're healing this. Everybody good? Yeah. Lisa said yes. Let's go. That's what it's like to be a witness of it. And you're in a state of grace and flow with that process. I never interrupt you. I'm just like, let her knock herself out right now. And it's amazing. And it's such a gift, Amy. Like it's such a gift to be able to take a method and then bring yourself into the method and create the environment for people to feel like they're going to let it happen. And it's not just let it happen now, but let it happen for everything and everyone.
Yeah.
Wherever this came from. And if it's just now in the present moment, you have a limiting belief that has nothing to do with the past, which is possible too, that you're not going to move this state of conflict or block to anybody in your life moving forward, because you're allowing yourself to release it. You're allowing yourself to see it through Amy's work and then release it together. Like, honestly, and I have to say it is easy.
It is. It's strangely easy.
Yeah, but I think you have to be good at also intuiting that experience, because a person, we could say anything to a person. And this happens to me in my work too. And we've had this, like, when somebody sees something through being an intuitive or an empath, and they tell you what they see and it's real and true, even if you don't totally remember it, it. And the minute you know it, yeah, that feels right. You start dissolving the problem. So it takes that willing participant, but it also takes a person who can actually see and feel and sense. And otherwise, it doesn't dissolve. It becomes a conflict. Like, okay, I feel seen, but it's not going anywhere. So I honor you for that, because that's who you are. That's not what you do. That's who you are, that holds space with so much sincerity to help people like stop being in their prisons, whether it's in your business or in your family or in your life or in yourself, but to find your liberation. And to find the space where you can just fly with new wings, because you're not imprisoned by the old ones, and nobody's hanging on to them. Like your family isn't like, I'm hanging on to that feather. I'm coming with you. And you're like, why can't I fly? I don't get it. What's going on?
Right.
So
Wow.
I really just, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that and being witness to me with this. And with all this, everybody listening, I would love for you to understand it's a surrender process. Like for me, it's surrendering to like my head might judge something, but it's like, no, just be in it and surrender. And the flow, the more you surrender, and I'll tell you that word surrender would trigger me during my transformation in this journey. If someone says surrender to me like 10 years ago, I would have wanted to punch them in the face, or and it makes me hold on even tighter, right? You hold on tight, surrender. And I'm like, ooh, hold on. No, I'm not going to surrender. But if you're triggered by that, it's like, that's where all the beauty is too. So surrendering and trusting for yourself as you're moving in your journey, because your journey will be different than mine. Your work will be different than mine. But the surrender part that's now feels a little bit more natural than it was, because I really did want to punch people in the face. Or someone would say surrender and I would shut down. I'd be like, well, tell me how. I'll surrender. Tell me how to do it. I just don't know the how, because my mind was that in control of figuring it all out.
Yes.
And so this allowing this to come through, I really appreciate you saying that, Lisa.
Mhm.
And I didn't answer your question about the collective.
Yeah.
There's so much going on in the collective that we can tap into and clear just the chaos, the fear, the energies that have all
Mhm.
been triggered and up right now. That are we feeling it here in America and also in the UK and also in Canada? Yeah, there's a lot of feelings that we're all feeling, the same collective of this
That's right.
holding our breath and the chaos and the stress and the everything that's been triggered, right? That's been going on. So there's that energy that can also be cleared as well, which I do those in my podcast. So something I surrendered to and shifted, I started sharing clearings and healings in my podcast, which
Yeah.
goes really different. Inspired Conversations is interviews like this with somebody I really admire to share their information to shift people's consciousness. But I also surrendered to offer some healings in that, so you can listen to those and have a collective clearing as well, because it's not all about us and our family stuff, like yeah, of
That's
course
right.
we all have baggage, we all have like so much baggage, it takes us around the world. We all do, none of us are we all have that, everybody does. So but there's also this collective thing that we're also tapped into. Some of us are triggered by it, some of us aren't. One day you might be fine and the next day you might fall into the group of everything that's being triggered, and you're falling right into it as well, and that doesn't feel good either. So having that space to clear that is important as
So
well.
that's yeah, that's really important. So you have an opportunity to go listen to some of the clearing that you've had, and they don't have an expiration.
No, it's just a
No
podcast. So
expiration.
in Inspire Conversations, there's healing, I call them healing vibes episodes. So if you see a healing vibe, you can just tune into it and there's a clearing in there if it feels like it resonates with you. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I'm definitely going to have you back to talk about that and do some cool things together for sure. So
Yeah.
let's talk about how people can find you. Like, how can they find you? I know you have some really cool group stuff going on. You know what I mean? I want you just like, where can they find you? What can they do? How can they get in touch if this feels like, yeah, I'm in. I want to try Amy out. They can listen to the podcast. But what else you have going on?
So honestly, my focus is being in this work like 100%. So you
Yeah.
can find me at amyschuber.com.
Yep.
I'm doing two things right now. I'm doing one-on-one sessions, which are very powerful, like Lisa said. So you can sign up at my website to find out more. If you want to have a talk with me, we can have a conversation, absolutely. Or I'm also doing collective clearings for people monthly, where it's a group, it's everybody's in a group and it's a collective clearing. It's not so much identifying your own personal stuff, but it's identifying the collective, which is super
Mhm.
helpful as well. And that's at patreon.com/Amy Schuber, where you can sign up for the collective clearings. I mean, and my focus is just to focus on this work and be clear about it. You can also listen to my podcast, Inspired Conversations with Amy Schuber, and that's on all the platforms. Apple, Spotify, everywhere you're hearing this, you can hear my show as well. And yeah, and you can always reach out, Amy at amyschuber.com. If you hear this and you want to talk, I'm open to talking to you, and you can reach out in any way that you want and we can connect.
Yeah, and I'll put all her links will be on the description too, just so you know. But I just wanted them to know that they have these opportunities with you. So, and
Yeah.
you're amazing, and I
Yeah.
adore you, and I think you should all just go get one of those and feel what it's like. Woo! Because it's really something. It's really an extraordinary process, and you have everything to do with, methodologies have everything to do with the people that are behind them. So
Mm.
I know that um, your excellence is just showing up, and I love letting you all know it doesn't matter what. And I know you work with business people, you work with spiritual people, you work with consciousness leaders, you work with anybody who has some healing to do, and this, they feel tuned into you and the methodology itself. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing your amazingness, and I adore you, obviously, as you know. And
Oh,
thanks for coming on the show and sharing so openly and vulnerably the journey of transformation, especially in your life's work and mission, which so many of us, we really need to be okay and have permission to do that. So
yeah.
thank you so much, my love. And we will see you when you come back and do some healing in this podcast. Thank you very much.
I can't wait. And thank you so much for having me. Thank you for letting me share. And if I could say something to everybody listening is like, don't, like Lisa said, don't give up on yourself, and, just be in it. If it feels hard right now, we've all been there and there's support for you. So just know that and keep going, because it's worth it. That's what I will say. It's definitely worth it to get back to yourself. So Lisa, love you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right. We'll see you guys soon. Enjoy. We'll see you on the next time.